Thank you so much, Joanna. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this webinar. Thank you to Joanna for organising this and for the invitation from Evidence Synthesis Ireland. Thank you. I'm going to talk today about the role of AI tools in developing search strategies and identifying evidence for systematic reviews. I'm going to, as Joanna said, there's going to be a recording, but we're also going to put the presentation available afterwards. A PDF is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you've been introduced to me very kindly by Joanna, so I won't go through this slide. But what I'm going to do today is to look at AI tools for search strategy development, search planning, and study identification. And then hopefully at the end we can have questions and discussion about which of these tools you're finding useful and what you're finding challenging in using AI tools for searching for systematic reviews. And then all of the things I'm going to mention today and some other material as well, I've made available on a small website, which I am going to put the link to in the chat now. So if you click on that, you'll see a little website with all of the resources. So I thought we'd start off by just thinking about AI tools and the systematic review context and thinking about the challenges to us about using AI for the creation of systematic reviews. And I wanted to just cover, first of all, the fact that there are several initiatives that we need to be watching, because I think they're going to be very influential in helping us to keep ahead of what AI tools are available, but also to help us to evaluate AI tools and choose between them in due course. So I'm just going to talk about some of these initiatives just to put them on your radar if they're not already there. So the first one that I wanted to talk about is this initiative called RAISE, Responsible AI in Evidence Synthesis. So this is a collaboration amongst some of the major systematic review organisations to look at how we can develop a framework for evaluating and adopting AI in evidence synthesis. They put together the first draft of the guidance back in the summer of last year and asked for feedback from anybody who was interested in commenting. And the draft, as I understand it, is now under revision. So RAISE wants to ensure that there are standards for reliable evidence synthesis, so that people can use, identify, evaluate and validate new AI tools, so that in the end, we only use the ones that are most appropriate when we're doing evidence synthesis. So I think going forward, as their guidance and guidelines become firmer and more established, I think these could be very helpful for those of us who are involved in the searching side of systematic reviews. Their definition of AI is quite broad. It's more than what we're currently thinking of as AI. It covers things like machine learning and text analysis as well. But they've got this very broad definition of AI being a set of advanced technologies that enables machines to do highly complex tasks effectively. And the way the guidelines were framed in the draft from last year, the roles of people involved in evidence synthesis were sort of described. And I think where searchers feature in these guidelines, whereas evidence synthesis, these are people who are doing the searches and who need to know which tools have been validated for use in reviews and how to use tools. And then evidence synthesis methodologists, I can't say any of these words, who are responsible for defining evidence synthesis best practice and ensuring it facilitates reliable and trustworthy evidence synthesis. So what they're developing is recommendations for both people in both of those roles to to help them to evaluate AI tools. Another collaborative is the Evidence Synthesis Infrastructure Collaborative, who are also focusing on safe and responsible use of AI. And they've been working through developing key principles for the adoption of AI technologies in evidence synthesis. And they've been working through a series of reports. And just recently, there's been the stage 3 consultation process, where there have been working documents where, again, comments have been invited from anyone who's interested in the development of these ways of evaluating AI tools and helping to recommend AI tools. They have they've introduced, I'm not sure if they've introduced, but they describe evidence AI tools as a type of digital evidence synthesis tool, and they label them artificial intelligence digital evidence synthesis tools. So what you're going to see, I guess what we're seeing more and more, is this phrase DESTs being used as a way of labeling the range of tools that we might use in systematic reviews that have a digital or AI component. So in their recent stage 3 reports in working group 3, they mentioned some particular aspects of their work that I think is interesting to us from an information perspective. So they're talking about one of the key objectives being to develop a comprehensive live inventory of AI tools for evidence synthesis. So this looks like a really valuable initiative, constantly updated tool of AI, a constantly updated list of AI tools will be incredibly useful for us all, I think. And they're also talking about the fact that they need comprehensive guidelines on the safe and responsible use of AI. So again, another useful initiative to keep an eye on, and to, when they next ask for feedback, I guess, to comment on their drafts. Another group to keep an eye on, or another collaboration to keep an eye on, is the Destiny Consortium. And this is a consortium to actually build AI tools, or these DESTs. So this group, their website is at the moment just expresses the aspirations that they hope to achieve. So there's nothing very concrete to get from the website at the moment, but clearly something to keep an eye on. And I just wanted to highlight the Cochrane Handbook, in case you weren't aware that the Cochrane Handbook guidance was updated last summer. And in the searching chapter, in the searching chapter technical supplement, we made a sort of a statement about where we felt that AI tools fitted in at the present stage of development in systematic review searching. And I wrote this section. So what I said at that point was that large language models and AI tools using large language models do seem likely to help with developing search strategies and the identification of relevant studies, but should be used cautiously. And they really are at the moment still a supplementary search approach, in addition to the more traditional search methods described in the rest of the searching section of the handbook. Now, I wrote this sort of in the summer, and I think even though things are changing incredibly rapidly and there is constant development, I think overall my message would still be the same. Having said that, we're in a very volatile, fast-moving area. What we're seeing more of, I think, and what it's really encouraging, is I think we're seeing more bibliographic control of AI research and AI tools. So there are groups out there now putting together repositories and bibliographies of AI tools and and evaluations of AI tools, which means that for those of us trying to make decisions about which ones to use, life will hopefully become a bit more straightforward because somebody else is doing the hard work of searching for the papers for us. So I've got listed here sort of 4 tools, and we'll just have a quick look at those. So this is the Lemaisia, or I'm not sure how you'd pronounce it, Lemaisia resource. This is basically, for the ancient people amongst us, a bibliography. It's a selective bibliography of papers on the automation of systematic reviews and evidence synthesis, interpreted very broadly to also cover natural language processing, machine learning, as well as the AI large language model aspect. And this is being updated daily and is free of charge. You can just go in and search it. And if we look under the searching tag alone, we can see 120 records. So this is a really encouraging development, I think, that we have a place that's already being populated with information which allows us to interrogate it and identify the evidence really quickly, because obviously searching for evaluations and searching for evidence on these tools is very challenging because of the sort of non-standard terminology currently in use. Another resource is the DEST evaluations collection. This is being been made available quite recently, and this is collecting evaluations of these digital evidence synthesis tools. And what you can do when you interrogate this site is you can see what publications have been related to, produced for particular digital evidence synthesis tools. And the rather small picture on the right shows the column for the searching publications, and down on the left-hand side there are all the different models and software, and then in the column there are the publications that relate to them. Another growing bibliography is this one. This is called the Generative Large Language Model-Based Tools for Health and Social Care Applications. So another living map or bibliography of the use of large language models in health and social care applications. A bit broader than searching and evidence synthesis, but still a useful example of how efforts are being made to assert some bibliographic control in this topic. And an old friend, I guess, the Systematic Review Toolbox. It's been in abeyance for a little while, but now it's back with a lovely new look. And obviously it's a great place to find software that's being used for systematic reviews. And what I've shown you here is the page about the searching packages, and it starts, this is just a listing of all the software that it mentions that can be used in the searching stages of systematic reviews. So those are some of the initiatives that are going on and some of the resources that are available to help us with information explosion in this field. And you know, it is a challenging, AI generally is challenging, and keeping up to date in any particular part of it, such as searching, is incredibly challenging because of the speed of change. And particularly in terms of trying to evaluate what tools are best, it's just a continual moving target, which means that evaluations published this year were probably carried out last year, and the tools that were being assessed in the evaluation are probably already changed. So it's really, really difficult to sort of say that something published last year is still going to be hugely relevant, but then that's all we've got to go on. So we do still, you know, look at older evidence, but everything moves very quickly. What I'm seeing with a lot of the tools is that they're becoming more and more similar. Things started out with a lot of variety, but now tools are sort of converging in the types of things they offer. So when we get to look at later on at some of the tools that search Semantic Scholar and search the academic literature using AI, was what we see with these tools is that what they offer is now very, very similar. And there's not many ways to distinguish between them in terms of features. Probably what's differentiating them is the algorithms behind them, and those are often things we can't actually evaluate or see. Also, a lot of the products that had been quite useful in terms of searching are now becoming more about synthesis. So what you probably noticed if you're a follower of Elicit is that what used to be a searching, very much focused on searching the academic literature, has now become far more about summarizing. And that's a growing pattern. Research discovery tools are not just simple research discovery tools anymore. They're trying to become the things that do the reviews. And that means that we're getting further away from their use as a tool for actual comprehensive identification. And then there's the issue about which of these tools is going to last. You know, your favorite tool could well be the one that disappears tomorrow or gets bought up tomorrow. So there's that sort of uncertainty of investing your time. You don't know how long something's going to last. And what's also clear is that there's lots of changing pricing arrangements all the time, and that's hard to cope with as well. Some of your favorite facilities in a resource in a tool may go behind the paywall suddenly, and what used to be free and helpful becomes free but less helpful. So I thought what we could look at is a couple of things. I thought it would just be good to look at general purpose generative AI chatbots like ChatGPT and like Claude. And then I thought we could look at some AI tools that search databases, and then just a few other different tools that you might like to explore. So let's think first of all about ChatGPT type services, chatbots, as I'm going to call them for short. How can these help us with searches? So you probably have already seen the Clark systematic review, which looked at the use of chatbots in producing evidence syntheses. Their publication came out has already come out, and it is informed by searches concluded in January 2025. So it's as current, I guess, as you could possibly hope to be, really, in terms of material covering the current, being as current as possible. But unfortunately, the studies themselves are often a bit older. They found 3 studies that evaluated the use of generative AI for the literature search tasks in evidence synthesis. And the 3 studies were all sort of showing poor recall, poor sensitivity compared to traditional search approaches. So you would not be using generative AI based on this evidence for carrying out all of your searches for systematic reviews. In terms of precision, 2 of the studies found that the searching conducted by human beings tended to be better in terms of precision than the chatbots. The precision range was much, much tighter. And then 1 study looked at the time taken to design searches and found that AI took much less time to prepare the search than human beings. There's some other research that also looks at using AI to help you build your search strategy. This paper by Spilias found that the AI tended to offer too many concepts for the search strategy, but was helpful in suggesting concepts for discussion, and also helped to make sure that helped the authors make sure that the search was more inclusive because it was able to provide lists of non-English terms, which were helpful because the actual topic was about fisheries management in the Pacific. So there are some pros and cons in the Spilias study. And then Ducasse reported that librarians achieved better retrieval than ChatGPT in generating search strings in PubMed. So based on that research and other research, there's some sort of, I guess there's some things we can probably say about how useful general purpose chatbots are when you're developing search strategies. And I think this is something would be really useful to discuss at the end to see whether you've got other thoughts on this or other things aspects of search building that you think the chatbots are good for. So please do put suggestions in the chat now if you wish to talk about this later. So suggesting subject headings, sorry. My perception of this, based on using ChatGPT and Claude over the years, is that the accuracy of the mesh that these tools are providing does seem to be improving. I very rarely find an inaccurate mesh these days. But if you ask the chatbots to give you entry headings, for example, they will often hallucinate. So whilst mesh seems to be reasonably accurate, other subject indexing languages are not being, it's not very good at giving you accurate selections. The general purpose chatbots can be useful in suggesting search terms, but they have a tendency to offer only a selection of terms and to emphasize phrases, which may not be always very helpful. They often don't suggest truncation, and they may not suggest that there are additional terms to find. They may not offer many term variants, and they may not split up terms, so they may not offer you hyphenated and non-hyphenated options. So the comprehensive approach to search strategy development is not what you typically get without a lot of prompting when you use a general purpose chatbot. Where they probably are helpful is in suggesting concepts. And I think particularly when you've got a complex topic, I think that they're very helpful in making you think or offering suggestions for things you can think about in terms of identifying the concepts in a complex question and then suggesting ways of viewing that question. What we do find, though, is that answers are unlikely to remain the same over time, and the answers are only as good as the prompts, so it's important to vary the wording of the prompts to see if different concepts might get suggested. Once you've got your concepts, the chatbots like Claude can be quite helpful at suggesting how to structure the search, which can then make you think through or help you to think through how you could explore structuring the search, combining the concepts. Although often the chatbots have a more complex idea of a concept than I do, for example. I think when we're doing searches, we tend to be fairly granular in terms of the concepts we're after, whereas chatbots will have several words in a concept, so they have compound concepts. Frequency analysis is possible using plenty of non-AI tools, so it's very efficient to do in a variety of packages and software at the moment. But you can ask chatbots to create frequency analyses of a set of records. If you want to do all your exploration in one place, that can be something that they can also do. But sometimes there are concerns that even with a frequency analysis, which you would imagine to be an objective activity, there may be selections being made or priorities being introduced by the generative AI that you are not always made transparent and you may not be aware of. So even though the AI may offer you a frequency analysis, which you which you would assume would be comprehensive, it may not be comprehensive. Where general purpose chatbots are not helpful is in adding search filters to a search. They will give you what you can ask them to apply search filter X that's been published and is on the web, and they will provide something that is a filter, but is not the actual verbatim filter. And I think this may be part of the just the fact that they are generative AI programs, that they're not actually programmed to give you verbatim text from somewhere else. They have to make changes to it. So search filters, you cannot rely, even though Claude tells you it's giving you the Cochrane RCT filter, it won't be unless you're very lucky. It will be a variant of it which it has made up. So I just thought I'd give you an example of using the generative AI for question exploration. So you've got a research question and you want some help with thinking through what might be the concepts in that question. So here is a prompt that I've put into Claude, and my question is a complex question. It's about what's the best time to give parents or carers of children in hospital information about discharge. What's the best time? And I've asked it to suggest concepts I can search for and concepts that might introduce noise into my search. And I've been incredibly polite with my prompt. So here we've got two things. We've got on the left the suggestions about the core concepts, and on the right, potential sources of noise in my strategy, or in the question. And I think what's really helpful, I found really helpful about the core concepts, is the fact that it takes different, it's provided different perspectives on each of the concepts, or on the concepts. So if you look at the first concept of hospitalized children, you can see it's suggesting that there might be one idea might be about the fact that you've got the idea of hospitalization and the idea of children combined together. You've then got the setting in the second bullet point. And then in the third point, you've got the very general idea that it's got to be children without the hospitalized concept. So this already is highlighting to me sort of several issues. One is that I could go down the compound route of looking for hospitalized children and maybe using lots of phrases. I should also be thinking about specific settings which are indicative of children and hospitals. But then I'm still got the challenge that I may be having to look for children without that sort of very clear framing within the hospital setting. So that's already making me think about three different issues with searching for that concept alone. And then if you look at the third one, which is discharge, again, it's making me think about different aspects of discharge, and also it's also making me think about the fact that it might not be called discharge at all. It might be talking about transition of care. So I think these types of things might be, this is something that I find Claude quite useful for. And then if we look at so these are the positive things, these are what we're looking for. Then over on the right, we've got potential sources of noise in the strategy that at an early stage, I can probably start to think about if in case I'm sort of can already identify things that I could need to try and focus, remove from focus in the search if I can, or actively exclude if I can. So one of the things is, so maybe item 4 is quite useful, that discharge might be to places other than the home. So one of the things I might try and think about combining into my concepts is this idea of home rather than going to some rehab centre or some other hospital. So there's things to think about there that might help me in building my positive searching concepts rather than thinking about excluding options. Another AI-informed tool that can help you with thinking about concepts is Globe Explorer. It's quite hard to find information about what Globe is actually doing, but at the exploratory stage, I'm probably not too bothered. But what I like about Globe is this listing of concepts down on the left-hand side. For some reason, it sort of manages to break up the concepts involved in the research question in quite a nice way, so that I can start to think about each of these issues in turn and think about whether they should be brought into the search or not, or discuss with the research team whether they're relevant or not. And it goes off the screen, and you also have information on the right in a bit more detail, but it's really these concept listings that I find quite useful. So I'm now going to move on to academic search tools that are using AI. So what are they? So they're all of these many available tools that are searching collections of academic research papers. So they are usually searching Semantic Scholar, but there are some that search Lens or OpenAlex. So they're running searches on these collections, and then they are using generative AI to categorize, select, summarize, and then provide additional outputs, so that you have basically a rapid review of the evidence that might answer your question. So this is also known as retrieval augmented generation. There are also a sort of a subset of tools that are using semantic analysis that sort of might have been around for quite a while. Many of these tools have free options, but a lot of them have both free and charged options, and a lot of the facilities and perhaps more extensive searching might be available behind the paywall. So this is just to show you an example of what I mean. This is Consensus, and what I'm particularly interested in these tools for is for finding representative studies or finding additional studies that will help me to build my search strategy. So I'm not using these to run my my literature search for the systematic review. I'm thinking about these as potentially tools that will help me, especially when I've got complex topics, to find additional relevant papers to help me build my strategy and to help me build a reference set to test my strategies against. So what I'm personally interested in with these tools, and what I think they're best for, is this additional record finding or research discovery aspect. So there are already many of these tools, and Cassandra Gorton has done a great paper where she's set up some evaluation criteria and then gone through the tools and evaluated the tools against her criteria, and then made a really nice table. So I think this type of service is just really excellent, and I think it's, hopefully we will see more of these and see these updated. You'll see on the screenshot that the table is April 2024, and in the year since the table was made, some of these tools have actually changed and offered slightly changed services, and some of the facilities will have disappeared behind the paywall. So these it'd be great if this is able to be kept up to date. The AI tools in this research is a mix of what I would call the AI tool, and also a mix of the underlying collections of publications. So, for example, Lens and Semantic Scholar and OpenAlex are being evaluated, as well as tools that search them. They obviously have their own search engines as well. But there's sort of two types of tool being explored here. One is the evidence collection, and one is tools searching the evidence collection. So the ones that Cassandra thinks are best according to the criteria that she's devised are consensus and evidence hunt, and then the next best were elicit, litmaps, and synapse. Other places where you can find lists of these types of search engine is Aaron Tay's list of search engines, and you'll see in the screenshot there's two groupings. There's the academic search plus large language models such as consensus, and then there's general web search and large language models, which is a bit like the first group of things I was talking about. So Perplexity is an example. So this is really great collection of information, and Aaron Tay's blog, Musings About Librarianship, is a great thing to be looking at on a regular basis. There's also other collections. So this is another collection of artificial intelligence applications. This one relevant for social science research. And amongst the 250 items in the list, 132 relate to literature reviews or writing. The only downside to this one is that obviously it's not incredibly up to date at the moment. So there is an awful lot of research on AI search tools, most of it coming to the conclusion that they can't at the moment replace the traditional search approaches that we adopt in evidence synthesis, where we're trying to be as sensitive as possible. But there is some evidence that AI tools can help us with identifying additional relevant references, but also caveats around the fact that even tools that are searching collections of research evidence seem to be able to bring back inaccurate references and irrelevant results. So things that they can help us with, finding additional relevant studies. And I think in that particular context, we also would be, what I think is increasingly useful is the AI tools that are interacting with full text papers. So giving us access to the richer data available in full text. And also some of these tools that seem to be quite good at looking at grey literature rather than the research, rather than journal articles. They can help with identifying concepts and themes. Most of the AI tools that you look at that are popular and are in say, Gorton's list are giving you some sort of thematic or concept analysis. So that's there, which again can help you with building your, or exploring how to build your strategy, and also to identify sources of noise and help you with raising questions to clarify your research question. And then there are some tools that will help us with potentially with strategy building, and I'll talk about Search 2D. So I'm putting a selection of tools. My criteria are basically that they're either free or they have a reasonable set of options at the free level. They seem to have some sort of added value for search preparation or review scoping, and they're quick to learn and easy to use. So I'm putting these in sort of order of my preference. So evidence-free zone here. SciSpace. I think SciSpace is useful because it gives you that access not just to the journal and title and abstract information, but also to full text PDFs. So you've got a richer source of data potentially. And I think it's really helpful for study finding. It has a section where it suggests related questions, which helps us with broadening out the field. It allows you to export results, which is pretty important in a variety of formats. And it has a very useful concept identification tool called Find Topics, which I'll show you on the next slide. And you can also break down the display of the information by particular fields or parts of the record, which again can be helpful if you're trying to explore particular aspects or concepts involved in your question. And obviously, because it's searching academic papers, it covers all disciplines. So this is just the highlighting the find topics part of size space. So this is an option in the menu, and if you click on find topics in the left-hand menu, it will then do a conceptual break. It will give you a concept breakdown of the concepts and themes it's found in the set of records that it's come up with as a result of your question. So this helps a bit like the Claude example I showed. Perplexity. Perplexity is a mix of large language models and web searching. So it does live web searching as well as using the large language model. And it's searching the whole of the internet, so it's not just focused on the academic literature. So what I think Perplexity is useful for is trying to move out beyond the journal literature to access the grey literature. And I think that I'm finding that using the simple search option is bringing up more grey literature than using the research option. So again, if you're trying to just go beyond the journal literature and just see what the grey literature has to offer in terms of additional relevant records to help you develop your search, then this might be a useful tool to use compared to the other tools that just search the academic literature. The only downsides with, well, the downsides with Perplexity from the perspective of using it as a quick exploration tool is that it takes a few minutes to run, and there's no easy export in the so that you have to use other options. And there's quite a lot of publications that talk about Perplexity bringing back inaccurate information or providing inaccurate information. LitSense has been around for an awful long time, and I think it still deserves to be considered as a very useful tool when you're trying to find additional relevant references and when you've got complex topics. And the reason why I think it's so useful is that it's doing semantic analysis. So it's using a non-Boolean approach to finding relevant records. And also you can restrict your searches to different parts of the abstract and paper. Obviously with LitSense you do have that focus on PubMed, so it's on healthcare. It's not general purpose multidisciplinary like the other two that I've just been talking about. So this is just showing you some LitSense results. It will give you in the result display some little snippets from the document so that you can see why it's responded with that document. It shows you the sort of match against the words in the document that that it feels demonstrate its relevance to the question you've typed in. And on the left-hand side, you can see the tick boxes where you can restrict the search to particular parts of the abstract. I was talking about how a lot of these AI tools that are searching research collections are now focused very much on making summaries and are starting even to sort of almost downplay or hide the references. Well, AI2 Paper Finder has sort of taken that on board and is now has sort of not giving you the summaries, but sort of the summaries are not stripped out. They're just not present. They're not even attempting to summarize it. They're really going for providing the references. So it's searching Semantic Scholar. It's also says in its sort of background information that it's trying to emulate an iterative search process that we would typically be trying to do in this when we're searching for research evidence. So, so it says it's trying to also find more niche findings and hard to find papers that require an iterative process. So I think this is sort of got some potential for further exploration, and also it doesn't burden you with the summaries. So that's quite good news, I think. You also see, well, you could see if it wasn't black, but it gives you little snippets of the sections where it's found information it thinks is relevant to the question. There is also a lot of people are very cautious about these tools because of the black box element, but there is quite a lot of detailed information in the background help files about how it's going about doing the search, which I think again merits quite a lot, merits investigation as well. The only downside, I think, so far from my perspective is that its exporting options are a bit limited. But I think this, as a searcher, I find this more stripped back, don't worry about the summaries approach, much more helpful, because all I'm trying to do usually when I'm at the search design stage is find additional relevant studies. So those are my favourite resources at the moment. Personal selection only, but there are lots of other resources that are also extremely good, and I'm not going to talk about these in depth because I'd like us to sort of move on to questions soon, but I just wanted to highlight some that I think are particularly useful. So Undermined is quite popular with a lot of people. It's subtly hiding more and more material behind a paywall, but what it does offer is still really interesting, especially at the search strategy development stage. And what's different about Undermined is that it's not just using, it's using a lot of citation analysis when it's determining what references to bring back to you. So it's using the citation relationships to improve and develop its searches. The other thing that's interesting about Undermined, but I'm not totally sure, and that also requires detailed evaluation, I think, is its completeness estimate, which I'm just going to show you on the next slide. So you'll see there's a little question mark right at the top of an Undermined set of results. And if you click on that query, it provides an estimate of how far the search results it's giving you represent the total literature available to find. And in the help files, it has has actually had a published white paper on how it's working that out. But I think this really deserves more exploration and evaluation, because if that is something that it can do, that would be an incredibly useful thing for us all to know about as searchers. Consensus, just adding that for completeness, the real value of consensus is that you can export the results very easily in CSV and RES and RIS. Evidence Hunt, again, sort of very similar to a lot of the others, although it's mostly focused on healthcare. And the other thing that's the unique aspect of Evidence Hunt, as far as I can gather, is the fact that if you click on references, you get like a pico coding, color coding of the abstracts, which again, if you're doing the development stage of your strategy, might be helpful for just homing in quickly on additional search terms and concepts. And then Elicit. So Elicit is going down the route recently of providing access to just the results. So you can do a just results search by using the find papers option on the right, and this means you don't get burdened with the summaries. It also does concept analysis. The key downside of Elicit is that the export is not free. There's quite a lot of publications now about Elicit, and although Elicit has changed over time, the publications do sort of give some insights into how people have found elicit useful and what they've used it for, and I've put those on some of those on the webinar website. So, sorry, that's just a quick table showing what I think each of these are useful for and what I think the added value is. So I'm just going to move on to some another AI tool that I think is helpful when we're building potentially helpful when we're building our strategies. So this is 2D search, and it has an option to generate a search strategy from a natural language question, and this is called the generator. It also has an option to help you to build a strategy using some of the standard frameworks. And I think this might be particularly useful if you've not done a spider type search for a while. It might help to sort of guide us through preparing searches with different frameworks. But the thing I wanted to sort of really focus on was the generator, which is using AI. So with the generator, you can put in your question, and I've put in a question there at the top about the effects and adverse effects of green spaces or parks in cities on mental health in city dwellers. And it just cuts that up into concepts. So you can then select which of the concepts you want to explore further. And you can see I've chosen 5, but I've not chosen effects or adverse effects. It then generates these keywords, and this is where the AI comes in. And again, you can choose which of those keywords you want to put into your strategy. And it's done that. Once you've done that, you can then click on Generate. And what it produces is a set of concepts in these little blocks. And you can then play around with those concepts in various combinations and run the searches in a range of different databases. And what you can see here is that I sort of wanted to bring some of the concepts that it had separated out together. So I've gone from 5 concepts to moving into 3 concepts, and I've just combined the green spaces and the parks together, and the cities and the city dwellers together. So now I've got 3 concepts which I've ANDed together, and I can explore the results in the databases that it offers, and I can then add additional search terms in and move my recombine my concepts in any way I want to explore, and then rerun them again. So this is a way of using AI to just help you with that initial exploration of which concepts you want to combine with which concepts, and also obviously giving you some immediate search terms to play around with. We're also seeing AI tools increasingly within discovery services and database interfaces, and I'm thinking about the sort of major library collections and search services such as Elsevier and Scopus. They're now all introducing AI tools into the interfaces. So these are worth exploring if you are able to access them via your organisation, one or more of them via your organisation. They're challenging to explore, as most of them are available behind paywalls, and I'm sure all over the world there are people doing detailed evaluations of what these tools have to offer. It's also, I guess, another fast-moving area in its own right. So again, I'm pointing you to another comparison, another blog from Aaron Tay. He's recently compared Primo Research Assistant, Web of Science Research Assistant, and Scopus AI, and I've put the link there on the right. So this might be interesting insights into what these AI tools can typically do. So on the webinar website, I've put some suggestions for further reading and watching, some videos, some blogs, and so on. And I hope some of those might be useful. And what I'm going to just summarize what I've said. There are many new initiatives to that are exploring and evaluating the use of AI in evidence synthesis, and in particular AI tools. And I think, we're going to see real helpful sets of recommendations coming out in the near future, which will hopefully guide us, provide us with more guidance as searchers into which tools are useful and how we might evaluate them ourselves, perhaps. We'll also see more resources, I think, where people are collecting evaluations and primary research so that we can all access them more easily. The general purpose generative AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude are useful for helping perhaps suggest concepts and search structure when we're developing our strategy, but they're not yet useful as a sort of a replacement mainstream approach for comprehensive research identification. And they don't really help us to build a complete strategy at this stage either. I think there's too many challenges, and I think it's probably easier to be doing it somewhere else. AI integrated search that searches academic literature collections, I think, are useful when we're developing our searches to help us identify additional studies, to build our strategies, to build reference sets, and also to help us with identifying concepts in the literature. There's limited research to explore the differences between these different AI tools, although there's lots of bits and pieces of evidence. And the real challenge is the fact that even if we did have all these evaluations, they're all going to be at different dates, tools have evolved. We're not dealing with a level playing field at any point. So evaluation remains really challenging. And also, once you do choose tools that you really find useful, there is always the concern that the tool you've chosen and invested time in may not be the one that's there tomorrow. So I hope that's sparked some thoughts and some questions. And if you've got additional suggestions of tools or papers or blogs that you found valuable, if you put them in the chat, I will add them to the webinar webpage after the meeting so that they're all in one place for you. But I'm now open to questions. So